Well, Senate Republicans today unveiled their plan to repeal and replace Obamacare. Their much anticipated bill eliminates individual mandates and Obamacare taxes. It also cuts Medicaid, but more slowly than the House version of the bill, while keeping some protections for people with pre-existing conditions. Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes is on the Hill. She joins me now. Nancy, what more are you learning about what's in this Senate bill?
Well, we've been going through the bill. We just got off of a conference call with some of the authors of the bill as they kind of walk reporters through what's in it and what isn't in it. The bill is 142 pages long, but essentially you can view this bill more broadly as a more moderate version of the House bill that passed about a month and a half ago. So it does a lot of the same things as the House bill. It eliminates the individual and employer mandates that were the hallmark of Obamacare. It rolls back all of the taxes that were imposed on the wealthy and on some corporations in order to pay for Obamacare's tax credits. Here's where it differs from the House bill. It does cut Medicaid in the end pretty significantly, but those cuts take place more slowly. This bill also puts into effect a stability fund over the next few years, tens of billions of dollars, to sort of shore up the individual insurance markets for people who have seen their premiums skyrocket. That is a new innovation that we did not see in the House bill. It still has those Obamacare tax credits for people who are on the individual market to help them afford insurance. And like Obamacare, those tax credits are determined based on income, age, where you live. So if you are a low-income individual, you're going to get more than if you make a little bit more. Those tax credits not as generous necessarily as Obamacare, but more generous, it appears, than the House version. However, that is already a sticking point for some conservatives like Rand Paul, who I spoke to a short time ago, Rena. He says, essentially, we are maintaining major pillars of Obamacare. That's not what conservatives want. Conservatives want a full repeal. Not a big surprise that Rand Paul doesn't appear to be on board, but it does signal that the margin here for Republican leaders is very narrow because, as you know, they can only afford to lose 2 Republicans if they want to pass this bill.
Yeah, I was curious about the other Republicans, Nancy. You were mentioning Rand Paul, but do you think they'll hit that number of 50 to make it pass through the Senate?
It's really hard to say because a lot of senators are telling us right now that they want to go back and study the bill. They want to talk to officials and experts in their home states to get their feedback. You know, this is a really major piece of legislation. So for a number of senators, it really doesn't serve them politically to come right out and say, I think it's great, I love it. They want to show that they are doing their due diligence. However, there is a very interesting segment of Republican senators who have gone a little farther than that and said, we have concerns. And mostly you're talking about moderate senators from states that participated in the expansion of Medicaid who are worried about what the rollback in Medicaid expansion will mean for the population in their states that is most vulnerable. Because remember, we're not just talking about low-income Americans, we're also talking about the lion's share of Americans who are in nursing homes. They get assistance through Medicaid. So this is a very important population to a lot of these senators. And you've had people today like Dean Heller of Nevada or Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia come out and say, I'm really worried about what I'm seeing. This may not be a cut that's as drastic as the House bill, but I've still got concerns. And if they don't get on board, Rena, they're not going to be anywhere near the 52 votes that they need. So that's a key group to watch.
So fascinating, Nancy. You know, I was surprised to learn, Nancy, Medicaid also helps pay for about 40% of childbirths in this country. You think of it as something that just affects older people, but it affects a wide swath of Americans.
Right, and it also affects a lot of disabled Americans, disabled children. Some of that money goes to educational programs in schools, and that's why we saw this very vivid protest here on Capitol Hill today. Dozens of people in wheelchairs outside of Senator McConnell's office, just a couple hundred feet from where I'm standing. They crowded the hallways and they were shouting, "Do not take away my Medicaid. I need it. Someday you may need it as well. And you're now looking at some of the people who were led away from that protest. It was a mostly peaceful protest, but clearly they were there to make a point, which is that this is a very big swath of the American populace at this point that relies on Medicaid. And the argument that Democrats are making is, look, at the same time that you are cutting insurance for the poor, you are repealing taxes for the wealthy. And so they are making the case that this is a big wealth transfer that the people who are well off simply don't need.
Our Nancy Cordes, Chief Congressional Correspondent. Thank you, Nancy, for your reporting.
You're welcome, Rena.